Sorry?
So in this webinar, there will be any participants? Screen share.
I think they will be logging. They will be logging time to time because there are 9 participants now. Like we are 6 and 3 more are coming. So
The participants are already they can see us on YouTube and they are logging in, but you can't see them. You can hear us and they can send the questions. So okay. Please, Dr. Taslima, you can start now. You need to unmute, please. Dr. Taslima, you are muted. Would you please unmute your phone, your mic?
Great. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. You can start now.
Should I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay, okay. Can you share my screen? Can you see?
Yes, yes, we can see you and we can hear you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, dear audience and respected speakers and Brother Ahmed Kathir for inviting us in this webinar. The webinar is organized by Islamic Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Agriculture, in short ICCIA. And the title of the webinar is The Green Finance, the Ultimate Path to Sustainable Development. I'm Dr. Taslima Julia. Let me introduce myself very briefly. I've completed my MSc and PhD from International Islamic University, Malaysia, and from the Department of Islamic Banking and Finance. And recently I have completed my term as a visiting researcher from from the Research Center for Islamic Economics, in short ICCIA, Istanbul, Turkey. And currently I'm working as an honorary visiting researcher at the Istanbul University, Turkey. And my research focus is actually green financing and sustainable financing, also Islamic banking and finance. Today, we are going to learn about green finance. What is the need of having green finance? What are the tools of green finance? And what are the projects that can be benefit from the green financing tools? And what is the role of international organizations in promoting green finance? And with us, we have today 3 world-class green finance practitioners and experts, Dr. Medhat Nafi, Mr. Atoni Faye, and Mr. Mohammad Zunaid Yunus Gori. When I was just going through the profile of all the speakers, I was really amazed and astonished by their professional background and educational expertise. Alhamdulillah. It would be a great session, I believe, and we can learn so many things from the audience, from the speakers, from the experts about the green financing and how this green financing is going to accelerate the growth of sustainable finance. So let me introduce our speakers. So first of all, Dr. Medhat Nafi. Currently, he is the chairman of the Arab Alloy, and also the board member of Mobile Property Investments UK and National Center for Social and Criminological Research. He is the member of a Supreme Advisory Board at the Arab League and adjunct faculty at the Faculty of Economics and Political Science, Cairo University, also the Institute of Arab Research and Studies. Let's go. He is a regular columnist and research analyst at many periodicals and scientific centers. He was also the Deputy Minister for Corporate Development at the Ministry of Supply and Internal Trade. He was the Senior Economic Analyst at the Egyptian Cabinet Information and Decision Support Center, with many published papers and a published book in risk management. Mr. Medhat holds a PhD degree in economics from the Faculty of Economics and Political Science, Cairo University. He is a certified system analyst and a Microsoft certified professional. Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Anthony Fay. He is an independent consultant and climate finance specialist at Fayon Consulting. Since 2012, Anthony has used his professional skills to help organizations, institutions, and governments to define and plan the implementation and execution of programs and projects. Notably, he was commissioned from 2014 to 2017 by the Rockefeller Foundation to support the city of Dakar in the development of the urban resilience strategy as per of Dakar's admission to the network of 100 resilient cities initiated by the foundation. As a member of the National Committee of Climate Change of Senegal, Anthony plays a major role in the advisory group. He also holds a Master of Economics and Political Development from the School of Public and International Affairs at Columbia University in New York, USA. Our third speaker is Mr. Mohammad Zunaid Yunus Ghori. He is currently the Senior Vice President of Zarari Taraqiati Bank. It is an agricultural development bank in Pakistan. And he is a financial professional for excellence imbued with latest knowledge in the financial sector, security and capital market, and alternative investments. Having over 22 years of highly diversified experience in the financial sector and capital market. He's a leading expert on green and sustainable finance. He holds prestigious award of the Australian government and professional award for green and sustainable finance. He gained international exposure in the developed world like the United Kingdom and Australia as part of his educational and professional endeavor. He has a distinctive set of educational and professional qualifications. He is a chartered accountant from the Institute of Chartered Accountants, England and Wales. He is a fellow chartered certified accountant from ICCIA UK, a chartered banker from Chartered Institute of Bankers, Scotland, and he has done his Master of Finance, Investment Banking from the world-leading University of New South Wales Business School, Sydney, Australia. I know you are eagerly waiting to learn from our speakers about green financing, how this green financing is going to really accelerate the growth of the sustainable development. Let's get started. So now I would like to request Mr. Medhat Nafi. Please, the floor is yours. You can start your presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Taslim, and thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for your efforts and for giving me such a great pleasure and opportunity to participate with such distinguished panelists and with the ICCIA, the amazing and very sorry, I can't share the screen. Can you please stop sharing from your side so that I can start? Thank you. So I believe I provided a short bio, but it was not short enough so that the most relevant expertise were not highlighted. I worked for the stock market for 16 years. I was heading a lot of departments like the surveillance, and I actually established the risk management department, and I was responsible for the indices and the information units and the sustainability profile. And with this sustainability profile, I was elected as vice chairman for the sustainability working group at the World Federation of Exchanges. And during this, and because of this, I participated in many COP conferences as a speaker in COP22 and COP21, COP23. But in COP27, the latest in Egypt, I participated wearing different hats. Because I was speaking about the decarbonization of the steel industry. I turned to metallurgicals by by being responsible for the largest holding company in metallurgical in Egypt. So today I'd like to I'll give you a glimpse about the financial markets engagements in supporting green finance. With a global climate finance needs, we need to know what is a green finance, as you kindly mentioned, Dr. Taslima, and then we'll try to have some information, some idea about the financing gap in order to green the economy, the global economy, and give some policy recommendations. Actually, it's not mine, but from different specialized organizations and different specialized initiatives that we will mention some of them during the presentation, how to establish a harmonized mechanism at the national level and to create sustained supply of green finance, and sustained is a key word, and to actually touch base on some instruments and tools and mechanisms needed to support green finance. Then we'll give give you idea about the recent trends in green bonds, and the green bonds are one key example of green products that should be there in order to have a sustainable green finance flows. If we have time, we'll give you some examples from efforts from the Egyptian exchanges, especially in a very specific year, which is 2015, and we will know later why 2015 was a very special year. So, just a second, I have a technical issue. Okay. What is green financing? Green financing is to increase level of financial flows from public and private and the not-for-profit sectors to sustainable development priorities. And these priorities should be clearly defined and announced and labeled sometimes using different methods all through the process of having a financial atmosphere that is crucial to be there in order to achieve the SDGs. And SDGs are very important term that we will definitely speak about during our webinar. So what is the government? What is required from the government? We need the regulatory framework. We need the institutional setup to be there. We need to have some tariff designing, some exemptions, some subsidies and guarantees to be provided to projects that are crucial to achieve SDGs or to achieve one of the main goals of the SDGs, which are 17 goals set by the World Bank in 2015. And these goals are well diversified, and each country has its own version of these goals, of these priorities embedded in the vision for 2030 and the revisited vision for 2050 in some countries like Egypt. So this is what we require from the government. Always, the government is not a player in the projects, but a regulator rather than a player or rather than a doer. It's a regulator. It makes sure that everything is there, all the regulatory infrastructure and the also technology is there. The business side, from the business side, we need to have the technical innovation, the managerial role in place to have the knowledge and to get it domestically and get it actually enhanced in conjunction with other international parties. And as for the citizens, we need to have awareness. We need to have willingness to pay, because it is costly actually to support financial greening the financial atmosphere or greening the economy is costly and still immature compared to the conventional methods. So you need to be ready to inject these inflows that we just defined under green financing. These flows should be directed wisely to green projects, and to label a project by being green, it is not an easy task. So what is sustainable development about? It's about three pillars, the main pillars, what we call the ESG, the environment, the social responsibility, and the governance. Most of the stock markets, we are actually focusing here on the financial market and capital markets. So most of the stock markets are started to give care, the due care for governance first, the third pillar, but nothing about environment and key environment issues and social responsibility until later. Maybe social responsibility also was tackled before the environment, but after having hit by the truth about the climate change and the dangerous impacts of the climate change, people everywhere started to think about priorities and rearrange their priorities about this planet. So one of the key roles should be focused on how to lower the carbon footprint, how to have a climate resilient markets, environmentally sustainable pathways needed to achieve the SDG goals, the SD goals. So in 2015, governments adopted 3 major agreements that set out the vision for the coming decades. A new set of 17 sustainable development goals, the Paris Agreement on climate change, which I had the honor actually to sign on the version for the financial markets on behalf of the Egyptian Exchange next to the ratification of this agreement in the COP21. We signed it in the COP22. So we have responsibility also on department level, on sectorial level. So on the financial market, we had the obligation to materialize Paris Agreement goals and the financial for development package, financing for development package. So what is the gap? We need to understand the gap to envisage what is required to be green, what is required to actually get rid of the bad impact of the climate change, and to decrease the footprint or decrease the actually potential temperature of the planet with very a passionate goal, which was not realized and will not be realized unless we make a lot more efforts. So overall, we need like $5 to $7 trillion a year to implement SDGs globally. So can you imagine the 5 to 7 trillion? And this figure was actually determined prior to the Ukrainian war. So the war in Europe might have, with its flows of inflation and inflationary pressures everywhere in the West and the East, might have this figure higher. Developing countries per se are estimated to face annual investment gap of $2.5 trillion in areas such as infrastructure and clean energy, water and sanitation, and agriculture. So in developing countries, the needs are very much related to the basic needs, and the gap is still there and still big. World needs also $8.1 trillion US dollars investment in nature by 2050. This is incremental, the lump sum of $8.1 trillion only to tackle triple planetary crisis, which is climate change, the issues about and challenges to biodiversity and land degradation. And this is not my figure, it's the figure of the United Nations Environment Program. So according to the International Energy Agency also, the world needs $1 trillion US dollars a year until 2050 to finance low emissions transition. And to understand the emissions, because that was a very important topic in the COP27 in Egypt a few months ago, the emissions from a continent like Africa, which is the home of a lot of developing countries and emerging, represents only 3% of the world emissions, which is much lower than the emissions of the steel industry if it were a country, which represents like 5% of the global emissions. However, we are paying paying the price for the damage to the planet even harder and more, because we are required to change our financing methods, to change our conventional method of financing and of development, actually, which is maybe turn it to be more costly, and this price we are paying equally with the developed countries. However, we are not participating in the damage equally. So the specific needs for developing countries, this will take us in more focus on the developing countries, is the inward direct investment, because the key challenge is how to support long-term finance, green finance, effectively prior to establishing a mature local debt market. You need to make sure that you are not only relying on or drawing on the grants from international organizations or any specialized agency, so that when you finish your work, when the grant is not sufficient to sustain, everything stops. So the inward direct investment will make sure that you are sustaining, you are making good sustained injections into the financial market, so that all the green projects can be financed in a sustainable fashion. The financial system development also for developing countries, we need to contribute to international debate and practice through the G20 and other relevant forums in order to get the proper knowledge how to be on the same ground with developed markets in terms of products. In the capital market now, we don't speak about assets. We talk about products, and every product should be engineered to fulfill a certain purpose, and this needs knowledge and knowledge sharing. In the Egyptian Stock Exchange, we made a lot of incremental knowledge from the advisory committee, and we had an advisory committee, a very savvy people were sharing in this committee in order to increase our knowledge about new products, and this helped us a lot to introduce ETFs, exchange traded funds, and to introduce and to regulate derivatives and to regulate swaps, and a lot of products that some of them still in the pipeline but maturing. The international knowledge sharing also should be enhanced in cooperation with the with different countries who should be sharing their extending the connecting platforms and initiatives, because we need to share some platforms in order to, for example, trade carbon credit or carbon points or any other relevant product. Some policy recommendations to promote green finance is to establish a harmonized mechanism at the national level. Second, I want to get this minimized. Yes. Okay. So establish harmonized mechanism at the national level to create a sustained supply of green finance, and the role of stock exchanges in supporting green finance should be highlighted, and then some other mechanisms support green finance. With establishing a harmonized mechanism at the national level, we need to start with building of green financial system that requires collaboration across public agencies involved in finance, environment, economic planning, natural resource management. It is not a one-man show. It is not the job of just one department. To establish the institutional structure to support green finance, and to establish and enforce increasingly ambitious environmental laws, regulations, and standards, establish the legal basis for investors to undertake their environmental responsibilities, and to have fiscal and tax policies that can be enhanced to support green finance, enhance the use of tax incentives by implementing additional preferential tax policies for green financial products such as green bonds. Second, we need to create a sustained supply, as I said before, a sustained supply of green finance. How to bridge the gap between supply and demand by understanding the financing characteristics, by understanding the risk profiles and the business models of green projects in order to find the business opportunities in green transformation. One day we were speaking about having $100 billion furnished upon request or ready to be used for green projects since the COP21, and nobody claimed this lump sum. Now the 150 billion US dollars are nothing if we compare them to the gap, and still we don't have the proper projects that can raise such funds, because it is not about having the resources only, the financial resources, but about having the proper projects that are labeled, that are green, that are in reality make a difference to your community and to the international cause. So, and also to build the infrastructure for green financial development. It is not an easy task. Greening the financial system requires developing the tools, the services, and the infrastructure to support financial institutions, such as environmental risk assessment criteria and the procedures, databases to support green finance decision making, to have green rating systems like labeling, which is very common if you compare them to the credit rating, for example. But this labeling is related to the green nature of the project, how the project is green enough, how it is achieving sustainable goals. So you can label your products, such as the green bonds, for example, by having a certain criteria, and we will speak about some famous criteria, by training and capacity building resources. The role of stock exchanges should be focusing on instruments, tools, and the products to establish a green stock index, for example. We started this at the Egyptian exchange very early in 2010, actually second to India, the second in the world. Promote the creation and use of green stock indices that orient the capital market to green industry, because you are providing some labeling to specific shares, to specific firms, by including them or disqualifying them from a certain index. And this index have criteria, and this criteria is very important to be in line with the international criteria for SDGs. To develop green bonds. It's recommended actually to help developing green bonds, especially in the developing markets. If you are not developed and mature enough, you can't only draw on the investment banks that you have in place. You must rely more or depend more on the governmental institutions, the regulators, to give support, to give incentives, to issue guidelines for green bonds, to define and classify green bonds, to consider providing tax exemptions as an incentive, because it's costly. Issuing green bonds is more costly than issuing the conventional bonds. So the reward is not might be not that lucrative for the private sector. To support and develop green bonds, self-sovereign green bonds, for example, to start with the sovereign green bonds. To build an environmental performance tackling and evaluation system for green bonds. Establish a green channel for IPO, the initial public offering. For when you are offering a new instrument for the first time, a new share or bond for the first time. So this for this subscription to be successful, it is recommended to simplify an IPO review or filing procedures for companies that meet the definition of green enterprises. To establish a carbon trading system and promote carbon finance, and to launch a national green development fund. And this fund could be very important in the very early phases of promoting the green finance projects. Other mechanisms like developing green PPP, public-private partnerships, project financing, it is recommended to consider engaging in the operations of the SPV when you establish a special purpose vehicle. You don't just it is not enough from the government side to be participant or to contribute on equity basis and be passive investor. You need to be engaged in the operation of this SPV, especially in the early beginnings, to establish and improve the structure of tax incentives, as I said before. And the green banking system should be there by establishing specialized green credit and banking functions within existing banks to increase the interest subsidies for green loans. So green loans, which are extended sometimes from grants and some projects, could be stretched to and the scope of it to be extended to different classes in the market. To implement compulsory environmental liability insurance, and this is important to make sure that the regulations are there for implementation on the local level, and to develop the list of entities subject to mandatory environmental liability insurance. And this insurance makes sure that all the damage that happens to the environment because of the project are fixed or are on their way to be fixed. So what is the green bond principle? We kept speaking about the green bonds and the principles that should govern these green bonds. Historically, the green bond market was dominated by supranatural and quasi sovereigns. However, the emergence of a more rigorous framework around the definition of green bonds, namely the establishment of GBP from International Capital Market Association, ICMA, helped it to evolve. Actually, the Green Bond Principle Initiative, it is a voluntary process guidelines, but actually it is becoming more compulsory. The Green Bond Principles have 4 core components. The use of proceeds. This is the first thing. If you want to issue green bond, you must make sure that these proceeds are utilized in or for the support of green projects, or the finance of the green projects, which should be appropriately described in the legal documentation for the security. When you are offering in the IPO for a green bond, you should put the specifics of the projects that will be financed by the proceeds. All designated green project categories should provide clear environmental benefits, which will be assessed and where feasible qualified by the issuer. The second core point is a process for project evaluation and selection. The issuer of a green bond should outline a process to determine how the project fit within the eligible green project categories, the related eligibility criteria, and the environmental sustainability objectives. The third point is management of proceeds, not only the where the proceeds goes on, but goes forward, but the management of these proceeds. The principles encourage a high level of transparency and recommend an issuer's management of proceeds. And on the reporting side, because reporting is very important for transparency, the issuers should make and keep readily available up-to-date information on the use of proceeds, so that the subscribers and the buyers of the bonds are aware of what is going on these proceeds. To understand the climate-aligned bonds outstanding, we chose the 2018 because it's prior to the crisis of the COVID-19. The fully aligned issuers represents $497 billion outstanding outstanding bonds. The strongly aligned with specifics like 75% to 95% of the revenues from green business lines represent or have the share of $314 billion. The labeled green bonds are 389, and the fully aligned US municipal issuers $250 billion. And this gives you an understanding of how far the green bond market is evolving, but actually it's still can be incomparable actually with the conventional bond markets. Since the launch of the first green bond in 2008, green, social, sustainability, and sustainability link and transition bonds, what we call the GSS Plus, reached collective volumes of 863 billion US dollars, or almost 864 in 2022. The green bond issuance made up just over half of labeled volumes in 2022, with 487 billion. Sustainability bond contributed 166, social bond totaled 130, and social linked bonds 76 only, 76.3 billion US dollar volume, whilst transition bonds saw 3.5 billion. The growth of the green corporate bond market is impressive. But actually more than 3/4 of the market comes from the US or Europe, with the later, the European market, making up nearly 60% alone. China makes up just 5% and increasing. Currency-wise, 95% of these bonds are denominated in either US dollar or euro. At the sector level, utilities have the share of 39%, and the banking sector 33%. Those are very, very quickly. I will take you through some milestones. Egyptian exchange started to implement new listing rules with a care and with a focus on the governance rules and improving governance was in 2004 and ongoing, actually, because they make amendments all the time. 2010, we launched the S&P EGX index for the ESG. You remember the 3 pillars of sustainability. In March 2010, actually, we were the first stock market in the MENA region and the second worldwide. 2011, hosting the annual event to promote the top-rated companies according to ESG index criteria. 2013, worked on raising the importance of the concept of corporate social responsibility. In 2015, a lot happened, actually. A lot of things happened. EGX launched a sustainability-related national dialogue. A sustainability advisory committee was established. Senior executive committee for EGX was established. We celebrated the Ringing the Bell event for the first time in the world. Actually, we initiated it to ring the bell, celebrating the gender equality means of our goal from the SDGs. Also, we were acknowledged in 2015 for communication to stakeholders. We were pioneering issuers of a model for other SSE, which means Sustainable Stock Exchange Markets. Sustainable Stock Exchange is an initiative made by the United Nations. I was also representing the Egyptian market in the Egyptian capital market in this initiative. EGX developed ESG information reporting guidance, which were the first in its kind. And it was active on UN Sustainable Initiative, Sustainable Stock Exchanges, and active member actually in the WFE, and I was elected for the first and last time actually from the MENA region to be elected as a vice chair and co-chairing the SWG for some time. The Egyptian Exchange also signed the Global Investor Statement on Climate Change in December 2015. By this, I thank you. I'm sorry for taking longer than I expected, but I'm also ready to get any clarification or requests or any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. It was really, very informative, and you have shared with us so many statistics. Alhamdulillah, it was a great session. And so should I open the floor for Q&A now, or at the end of all the speeches, we'll ask for Q&A? Yeah. Anyone is willing to ask any question? Okay, I think it will be better. We first finish our speeches and then we do the Q&A. Yeah. So now I would like to invite Mr. Atsunufe. And so, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank Dr. Mehdi that he went very, very, like he dived very deep in the subject. So it's really my pleasure being here, because I think it's going to facilitate a lot of things for me. I will remain aerial and not really getting into his number, his figures, and because we don't have here in Senegal all this experience of the stock exchange. All what I can do is trying to bring some understanding of the subject, green finance, the ultimate path to sustainable development. I know that it's a repetition. You already say that we expect that after today's lecture that participants will be able to understand what is green finance. Why do we need green finance? What are the tools of green finance that my predecessor just lined up? What are the projects that can benefit from the green finance tool, and what is the role of the international organization in promoting green finance? For me, I have an outline a little bit different because I thought that we cannot speak of climate green finance without putting it in context. So I went to set the context, and then I introduced some selected key concept of the green finance landscape. I was trying to embrace the spectrum because I know it's very, very, very large. You might have a definition yourself. Somebody else is going to have a definition of green finance. So there is no agreed definition internationally that everyone are going to stick it, but you have some criteria that you cannot avoid to fulfill. And then, because right now, what is really dominating is climate change. We are talking about green finance, but climate finance is also within green finance, and I'm going to try to find out what is the difference between economic growth, what economic growth is doing to the environment, and how by taking care of the environment we can maintain some good way of having economic growth. So my setting the context is, first I tried to find the historical of where did we find out all of this need to get to the green finance, and I look at the social context and the environmental context. First of all, green finance for me it's an umbrella of term that refer to the incorporation of environmental, social, and governance, what we call ESG, consideration into investment decision. And to understand how it has become a large, let's say, a large and fast-growing segment of the capital market, we need first to look at the interrelated condition, which the shifting of capital from more traditional asset to green asset has occurred. And to begin with, we think that the interrelation could only be fathomed within its tri-dimensional context, which is the historical, the social, and the environmental aspect. Yes, conventional economic growth was always meant to happen from uncontrolled use of natural resource and environment pollution. So you see, no one was really since the great economist Adam Smith of making profit and investing the profit and making again profit. No one really was caring about our world. So what was really dominant is how to make more money from whatever you can. And then in the 1970s, I think there was these two guys, John Holder and Paul Ehrlich, that established an inverse relationship between economic growth and the environmental impact. They were like, okay, we we don't want to repeat what Malthus has said, but we are having an exponential growth of population that is a consumerism, and then the business sector is not paying attention on what's going on. So, and indeed, not only that the short-termists and excessive leverage aiming at fast profit from investment, it distorted the financial sector, but it's also impounded all the market. And I think my friend that just passed know exactly what I'm talking about. So you see the trend to making investment in carbon intensive and inefficient industry somewhat was profitable, but lead to instability, for example, in food commodity market. And when that happened with the society that is really on the brink of exploding, what you can have is really political upheaval and social trouble. However, green finance per se wasn't already in the agenda, and development of innovative finance tool and instrument to address the social and environmental triggered some fast forward memorandum of understanding to anticipate on the discontent, because it was coming. And one of them is, I think, is the point of depart of everything is the Ecuador principle. Through the 1990s and 2000 and early 2000, environmental awareness has grown up, and everyone was talking about how we are being impacted by something that we didn't have really the scientific knowledge to say that it was because of us. Investors become vulnerable to criticism, and that their activities might be doing more harm than good. And as the situation escalated, it was determined that their reputation were at risk. So these two departing points have carried financial consequences. What followed was the understanding that new ways to align investment with modern social value were needed. And this is where I think the financing sector has been very good to react. They sit down, and it was not something that was mandatory or committing to something that you cannot do, but we had the Ecuador principle that were created 20 years ago to make it possible for real investment to address both profit and social benefit, because in reality, the first concern of anyone that is putting money somewhere is how to make money. It's not really how to better the world. But you cannot making money forever if you don't take care of the world itself. And then the environmental context is the narrative of green finance, I think, has peaked when the interlink of the awareness of environmental and economic needs has become more apparent in certain circle, like a political decision maker, like civil society, like the trade union, and all of these NGO. To implement such a global sustainable transformation process, it has been brought to the attention of investors, because they are the ones that have the money, that environmental quality is a regular economic good with two distinct meanings. The first one is related to the fact that a clean environment is a common commodity for which economic agents could be prepared to pay, even though sometimes the price can be not like equitable to everyone, but people were really ready to pay, because it has come that the scientific consolidation of the attribution of the cause of climate change was a defining factor. When people find out that it was us as human beings, this is anthropical causes that we did it since the 1850s, then everyone was ready now to listen. Okay, some key concept to the green finance landscape. Sorry, I'm having some trouble. I have some useful remark here, and then I want to take to the responsive investment, the impact investment, the green finance. These are really key concepts that we cannot defer to ignore, to talk to. Sustainable and responsible investment is the ethical investment, the socially responsive investment, impact investment. All of these things have come to become under the umbrella that I was talking. They are used indifferently or with overlapping meaning, but definition for these different financial activities vary across region and within this region over time. What you can like feel in Egypt, although we are in the same continent, it's not going to be the same thing in West Africa, and it's not going to be the same thing in Bangladesh or in China. So green finance is a subset of impact investment, which itself is part of sustainable and responsible investment. I have a framework here that can highlight how we have to understand it. I'm sorry I didn't put it there, but all my figures, all my mapping, I take them from a report that I was involved in for the EU. It's called Green Win. It's a project for greening the business model and greening financial the finance landscape. Sustainable and responsive investment is an investment approach that considers environmental, social, as well as corporate governance. The factor in the portfolio selection and management, when it came to on board at its origin, it was just a value-based investment approach, meaning the primary goal for a sustainable and responsive investor traditionally has been to align the economic activity and financial investment with the core value and principle. Yes, it's true that investors, they can bully, they can be like using some kind of not so nice approach, but they also have core value because they have family, they live, they know they're gonna die, so they are religious, and they don't want to really look like they are just a demon and all of these things. In a world where climate change and water scarcity and global supply chain usually dominate the business, the social responsible investment, it was not just about personal value anymore. It become a managing tool for risk to long-term shareholder and stakeholder value. So then you have the impact investment, that are investment that intentionally target social objective along with the financial return and measure achievement of both. It's quite contradictory, but it was something that the Rockefeller Foundation come up with. It was a new addition on the universe of the term that was coined, and dating back to 2007 only. It is conceived to help government mostly to use the fund that they have in their disposal for a more effective way, but reaching result with the same amount of money that if they were doing it on another way. So the impact investment bring a dimension to evaluating investment outcome. That dimension is the impact of the two existing dimensions of risk and return. Then we have green finance in a more broader way that is concerned with reaching a green economy through green growth and sustainable development by investment into projects generating direct climate or the environmental benefits. So now we have this green finance that is looking first at how they're going to have like a meaning on impacting what is going on, like climate change. Let me. Okay. However, various definitions on green investment are in use, and it's not only the definition of green bond, also that of investment that differ. Nonetheless, we can say that green finance can be viewed as a core part of the green economy. So we have we create a new level of economy. It's no more economy as usual, traditional way of doing it. You need to be into a green economy, as it is the link between the financial industry, the environment, and the protection for economic growth. It recognizes the importance already of the value of the environment and natural capital, and seek to improve human well-being and social equity while reducing environmental risk and improving the ecological integrity. It's kind of very discourse, very literature, but it's like that. If you have to take it and then and go with it. What is interesting here is there is appropriate business model to support all of that. You can take them by group, technological, social, and organizational. Then you can have archetype, maximize material and energy efficiency, create value from waste, substitute with renewable and natural process. When it's come to social, it's deliver functionality rather than ownership, adopt a stewardship role. All of these are to encourage efficiency. And when you go to organizational, it's repurposed for society environment. Then you have another example of low carbon manufacturing solution. Like people were talking about cradle to cradle, solar and wind power based on energy innovation. The result is oriented pay per use. It's ethical trade, like fair trade. You have people came up with if the coffee that you're drinking is not really produced in a respecting some human right, avoiding child labor, then you are not in the you are not really in the mood of appropriate business and model in support of sustainable development. Okay, but the elephant in the room is really climate finance. Overwhelming part of green finance are concerned with climate change, focusing on mitigation and adaptation strategy. The core of green finance is therefore climate finance. And as adaptation strategies are difficult to be defined and measured, we leave it to the UNFCCC, and most climate finance is concerned with mitigation strategy. I will address it extensively later if I have time. But if I want to look at the whole spectrum of green finance, then I need to define the green business model and other related concepts. Have the green finance investment strategy. Just present a taxonomy of a lot of names that come up, and then try to find out if I can explain the green business model. And there is a special concept that people call eco innovation. So in the multitude of business model definition, the common element identified is the concept of value proposition, value created, capturing value. Every time you talk about green business model, this is the word that you're going to look at, the word that people want to put in front, because it's the most convincing If you don't have it in your proposal, there is no way you're going to get money. What makes a business green, and also define the concept of eco-innovation as a key element for green business development, therefore a primer for green finance. When the purpose of an organization is to create and to deliver and capture economic, social, and other form of value, while also adding environmental value, this could be the start of establishing a green economy. And I think this is what my predecessor was saying. Egypt is really leading in that way. I was in Sharm el-Sheikh and I see a lot of things there that are really, really captivating. I don't know if it was only for the COP or it's going to be permanent, but I think you are on a good track. Green finance investment strategy, people have find out that there are two tracks. There is the negative track that is exclusionary. Typically, it's a way of screening the risk against a range of non-financial performance metrics that going to call upon human rights, call upon gender sensitive. Such screening result in divestment from all the avoidance of ESG high risk investment. People have really like stop putting their money in those kind of business. Yes, they stop putting money, but it's still green finance because they are lowering the risk of those still operating company to increase what we are getting to suffer. The most common risk screening is high carbon intensity. Whenever people see now high carbon intensity business, you can make sure that they're not going to put their money there. Then you have the positive, that is the integrated green finance. Typically, it's aimed to achieve a double objective of impact by providing both new additional capital and focusing on high potential startup or high growth potential impact company. This is why the climate finance, it's a contentious subject, because up to now we cannot agree to really a definition that doesn't move away from Article 4.11 of the convention, that is really clear that the polluter pay, and they pay. They don't try to change their ODA, the official development assistance, but it should be new money. It should be predictable. We need to know exactly when we're going to get it. And it should be also scalable. Like we know why in 2009, we've been subject to a trick when people say, okay, developing country, we're going to give you $100 billion. But you need to sign this paper that we agree to not, we don't agree to have like an agreement, like what has happened to Paris probably 4 years after that, or 6 years after that, but you just keep quiet. We're going to give 100 billion. It's never come. Positive green finance investment strategy focus on providing new capital into high impact company. So I have here a taxonomy of all of these terms that are running through making people understand what is green finance. I cannot be here citing them, but you have the ESG category, the type of finance, the investment approach, investee profile, investment strategy. So the ESG category, if it's environmental, then the type of finance is going to be green finance, risk focus, and double delta focus. If it's social, you're going to have impact finance. If it's governance, then you're going to have stakeholder finance. So you see, whenever you are approaching this context, you need to know exactly where you want to make sense. Because if you're not coming in the environmental with stakeholder finance, you have to make sure that you want to use green finance. And that's a tool that cannot be used in the social because it's not going to make sense. Okay. The market size, distinctive feature of the sustainable finance market is the variety of type of capital available to develop, to deploy and co-invested in blended structures for sustainable impact. These range from grant, foundation asset deploy as program relative investment or mission related investment. Those big NGO are really good on that. Rockefeller, Oxfam. I don't know where they're getting the money, but they are really good in making sense on their investment. And you have sub-market and market return impact investment, development finance too, green and social bond, and market rate return screened investment in public. This is what I put here as the spectrum of green finance. Now, I don't know how many time I still have, but I wanted just to do a quick review of the climate finance, because this is something that is really special. I'm not going to be into the outline, or I'm going to go fast forward. So defining climate finance, you have to look at the formative framework of the finance obligation, the consequence from the building block, early contradiction, and why are we still there, and the current and tentative term of defining it. Like I told you, the formative framework for climate finance, the UNFCCC entered into force on the 21st of March 1994. Clearly, the convention stated in Article 4, paragraph 3, that the developed country party and other developed party included in Annex 2 shall provide new additional financial resources to meet the agreed full cost incurred by developing country. You go to the paragraph 4, the developed country party and other developed party included in Annex 2 shall also assist developing country party that are particularly vulnerable to the adverse effect. So you see, sometimes when you are in the realm of green finance, there is country that consider climate finance and other that don't, because they know they cannot get it if you base it only to the convention. But they're going to do like play trick, because it's not a stock. The climate finance is not a stock where you can go and really get the money. No, you have to have project with good rationale that going to convince, I don't know, the mechanism that is managing the money to provide you with that. And since conceiving a project costs money, and all of these developing countries don't have the means to do it, so you can ask everywhere. The UN system is managing that climate finance with some kind of managing cost, interest cost, and and you name it, because they can pay consultant, high cost to conceive a project for them. And my country is not going to be able to do it, so they have to rely on those people. Sorry, let me have some water. So The thing is, inter alia, these two paragraphs are the building block of, of climate finance. The consequence from the building block are that polluter, we have a fishbone diagram here. These people, they already mess up the planet. So we call them polluter and they're going to pay, but it's not going to happen like that. Developed country shall provide. Are they doing it? I don't think so. What transpired is implementing measures to reduce emission, management and conservation of sink, preparing for adaptation, integrating climate change into all the national policy, promoting cooperative research, and all of these things become really tremendous for developing country that are the one who should receive the climate finance. To the extent to which developing country party will effectively implement their commitment under the convention depend on the effective implementation by developed country party on their commitment under the convention too. And this is the early contradiction that we have had, while in the meantime, economic and social development and poverty eradication are priority. As far as in the early years of the convention, one of the biggest and most contentious issues in climate politics is the provision of money to help poor countries cut emission and protect themselves from climate impact. If I don't want to be pointing finger, but all the mechanisms that came to exist have had kind of a faulty way of looking at things. The CDM didn't make it. Only 2 or 3 countries have realized 90% of the proceed, and all the other countries that didn't have heavy industry could not benefit from that. It's the same thing with the GCF. The GCF is there. Not only the replenishment is not good, like the kind of amount of money that they say is going to get, they didn't get it. And then to get money there, you have to really be very good at conceiving, elaborating a project, making sure that you have the right data that are very, very expensive to get, because there is no, this country in Africa, they don't even have the good meteorological services to tell them how things change. So what is it for? Climate finance that you cannot use. So attribution, the process of establishing the most likely cause for the detected change has in fact designated with defined level of confidence and responsibility. Although from a climate justice movement perspective, and given the need, framework and obligation, defining climate finance from that responsibility is lacking real and strong advocacy. I don't know who is going to be in a good position to make people come back to the table and try to look really at the needs. We are actually doing what they call the new quantify goal on climate finance, NCQG. I don't know how it's going to end, but I want to stop here, and then when we have more time, I'm going to come back and continue. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir, for your explanation. It was a bit long, but alhamdulillah, very informative. And one thing I would like to appreciate, that is, I myself was also confused about like the term like green finance, impact finance, climate finance. We use so many terms. Sometimes we are confused, right? But yes, alhamdulillah, we have cleared it that when we say the same financing like green finance, when it become impact finance.
Yes.
And when the same finance maybe become the climate finance. Okay, thank you for the information.
Okay.
And before we start hearing our third speaker, actually, I would like to give you some idea about the organizer and why the organizer have organized this webinar on about the green financing. Okay, so our organizer is ICCIA. The full form is the Islamic Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, ICCIA. And the Islamic Chamber is an international organization affiliated to the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the sole representative of the private sector in 57 member countries. Its membership is comprised of the Council of the European Union and National Chamber of Commercial in member countries. And why the institutions have been chosen this topic? Because the green financing, the sustainable financing, these topics are highly, top topics nowadays. And in the middle of the rising environmental threat faced by the whole world, there is no non-dispensable role that green finance can play by providing promising solutions to such threats, contributing to achieving environmental sustainability and contributing to the zero carbon emission targets and other commitments mentioned in the Paris Climate Agreements and the relevant declarations. So now it is clear to us why ICCIA has organized this webinar on the topic of green finance, the ultimate pathway to sustainable development. So now I would like to invite our third speaker, Dr. Zunaid Yunus Guri. Sir, the floor is yours.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Taslima. And also I'm thankful to my earlier colleagues who have covered it quite comprehensively as far as the global environmental and other considerations are involved. My presentation, since I've been from the financial sector, so I'll be largely covering it from the financial institutions point of view. I've been already, I think my introduction has already been given, therefore I'll just escape and I'll move further towards the green finance agenda. When it comes to the green finance, as my colleagues have already covered, and it's been derived, one of the things from which is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. As you know, as being told by my earlier colleagues, there are 17 general objectives that have been agreed by 193 countries in 2015, which is intended to address the major environmental, social, and economic challenges of our time. These goals generally cover the areas like that of poverty reduction, zero hunger, health, education, gender equality, clean waters, affordable clean energy, decent work, industry, reduce inequalities, sustainable cities, and climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice,
Sir,
and partnerships. So
you can share your screen with us.
I want to share.
Yeah, you can, if you wish.
Just hold on for a while. Just let me do it. My apologies. I just missed to share the screen primarily. So my apologies for. All right. So I was just discussing about the UN SDGs, and one of the very significant SDG is the climate action. Climate action, because climate change itself happens to be one of the most important threat to this world. It's of our times one of the greatest threat to the nations, to the countries, and to the global world, in fact. So we can see the changing weather, the changing climate has been affecting the lives of the people in different ways. We have been experiencing the floods, we have been experiencing the droughts, we have been seeing the melting glaciers, we are facing the scarcity of drinking water, we are also experiencing the bushfires. So all of these climate change related issues are affecting our world. So our planet, our people, animals, and the plant forming our life on the planet is impacted by a wide and interlinked range of the environmental factors caused or accelerated primarily by the human activity. So what do we mean by the climate change? Climate change is the large-scale, long-term shifts in the planet's weather patterns and the average temperatures. So this may bring in a number of changes like to that of habitat loss, destruction or damage to the habitats, which means this planet of ours will no longer be able to support the species. Likewise, biodiversity loss, the extinction of the species at the local or global levels, the poor air quality, increasing natural or human-made pollution, poor water quality as well, the deterioration, the extent to which the water is clean, it's not been made available for the human or plant or the animal life, it's not supporting that. The scarcity of fresh water as well, the deforestation, the destruction of the trees to clear that, to create the clear land, the soil erosion itself, the contaminated land, the contaminated seas as well. So these are all posing a great threat to the very living of the human and the animals on this very planet. The United Nations Framework Convention on the Climate Change happens to, as already discussed by one of my colleagues, happened to be the first treaty, the key international treaty that was agreed by 197 countries of the world in 1992. The Paris Agreement is an agreement which is reached as a result of the UNFCCC process, in fact. So, so the Paris Agreement was agreed in the COP21 in December 2015, whereby the countries agreed to combat climate change and accelerate and incentivize the action investment needed to support the transition to the low carbon world. The agreement's central aim is to strengthen the global response and the threat of the climate change by keeping a global temperature in the century to below 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels, and with the more greater efforts to limit the temperature to the 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is the Article 2.1a of the Paris Agreement that needs and emphasizes on reducing the global temperatures. The agreement entered into force in November 10, 2016, and after accounting for at least 55% of the global greenhouse gas emission that ratified the agreement. There is another Article 2.1c which makes it compulsory that the making finance flows shall be made consistent with the pathways to the low and greenhouse gas emissions and climate resilient development. So when we talk of bringing the global temperatures to or restricted to 1.5 degrees Celsius or below, there will be the strict limits or the amount of fossil fuels we can continue to use for power generation or for other activities. So there will need to be replaced by alternative clean and renewable energy sources. What this means? This means that many fossil assets will become impaired and become stranded. The assets have suffered from unanticipated or premature write-downs, devaluations, or conversion to liabilities. This process is called the carbon bubble. The carbon bubble means that a number of our assets, like that of, for example, my car, which I'm running on the fuel, is unlikely to be used, say, in a couple of years, whereby I'll be destined, I'll be compulsorily be using an electric car. So my current car will become non-usable and will be obviously carrying no economic value. There'll be no buyer for it. So this is what we call the carbon bubble. So when we talk of the green finance from the financial sector's perspective, it's any financial initiative, process, product, or service that is designed to protect the natural environment and support the transition to a sustainable low carbon world, and or to manage the climate-related other environmental risks impacting the finance and investments. So is the sustainable finance, the inclusion of economic, environmental, and social factors in an organizational strategy, management, activities, and operations, combined with the financing of sustainable economic, environment, and social objectives. So I do agree with my earlier colleagues that these terms have now been interchangeably used quite wide and large. So by green and sustainable finance, we mean predominantly all those activities that are intended to bring and restore our environment. So finance has a great role to play in this overall transition to control climate change, to reduce the effects of climate change. So the finance plays a leading role in addressing climate change mitigation and adaptation, leading to a low carbon world. What do we mean by climate change mitigation? This means all those projects and activities that aim to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and the rate of climate change. For example, funding the renewable energy systems to reduce carbon emissions, cleaner transport systems, etc. Climate change adaptations, it means the project and activities that aim to reduce or improve the resilience to the effects of climate change. Well, supporting the transition to the sustainable finance will require very substantial investment. These are a number of studies. Dr. Midhat already shared one with you. It's just been a couple of different international sources who have conducted their own studies, and they have come up with the different and varying suggestions about the amount of investments that are needed to bring towards a low carbon world. So I will take the two very significant ones, which is the G20s and the new climate economy, because both of them take it as the $6 trillion per year of the financial contribution. So although the green and sustainable finance is growing rapidly, there have been very significant commercial opportunities for the banks, investment insurers, financial services organizations to support towards that transition to a low carbon world. But despite this rapid growth in the recent years, however, there's still a very substantial investment gap, with some 6 trillion per year of the finance needed and only an estimated 500 billion per year currently committed. So to fund the green infrastructure requirements between 2016 and 2030, this is an estimate by the G20 and new climate economy that I just shared earlier, this one. So this is the 6 trillion. So there's a wide gap between what is required and what is being made available. So the scale of the investment itself required means that public funds alone would not be enough, would not be sufficient to bring the transition. The financial service sector, therefore, has a key role to play, mobilizing and directing the private investment to support the necessary transition to the sustainable low carbon world. It's estimated that at least 80% of these funds are needed to be contributed from the private sources. So this gives a great commercial opportunity to the financial institutions. And in addition to being a commercial opportunity, this also gives an opportunity to the financial sector to demonstrate its social purpose by playing its key role towards the transition of a low carbon economy and sustainable world. What else? By supporting activities, organizations, industries that can bring the climate change, help individuals and communities adapt to the climate change, and support the long-term social and economic goals. These financial services organizations, banks, financial institutions can help solve some of the most important challenges that have been facing the world, the communities, obviously the greatest challenges of this time. So the role of financial sector, the finance investment can help and can also harm the environment. They can help the environment, they can harm the environment as well. And likewise, when the environment can also have positive or negatively can impact the performance of the investments of the financial services firm as well. Finance can also play a role in encouraging and incentivizing the firms and industry sector to decarbonize and divest, or threatening to form firms or sectors perceived as damaging the environment. So the financial sector impact on the environment financial sector has quite a substantial impact, both directly as well as indirectly, through its investment choices. For example, by financing the companies or projects that are heavy users of the fossil fuels in the production processes, or that can have significant environmental damage through deforestation or harmful waste. The finance sector is also impacted by environmental factors, particularly by the climate change, both directly and indirectly. The financial, wherever we see the vagaries of the climate, a flood or a hurricane can bring in down a number of investments, and that losses also impact the financial institutions as well. So the financial institutions are also impacted by the environment, and they can also impact the environment. So many environmental factors are interconnected, and increase in global temperatures, for instance, leads to the marginal desert habitats becoming inhabitable. This may lead to significant fall in number, extinction, or one of the more reasons, and can also affect a number of businesses, and it can also affect the food chains. Financial sector can direct its investments towards climate resilient sectors, those sectors who reduce the greenhouse gases and promote climate resilient development, can protect or enhance environment on broad levels, in fact. So what are those green industry sectors that the financial sector can support? These are the few, like renewable energy, energy distribution systems, energy storage systems, emission reductions and capture mechanisms, energy efficiencies, green buildings, green transport, water conservation, pollution control, waste management, biodiversity, afforestation, reforestation, and serving the blue economy. So these are the different industry and green sectors wherein the financial sectors can contribute. However, there are a number of challenges to this. Finance still often contributes to increasing the greenhouse gas emissions and other environmental and social problems, such as habitat destruction, etc., rather than financing sustainable solutions. There are three characteristics of the finance that lead to this. Instead of, contributing to the economy, they are adding to the effects of the climate change. There are three predominant reasons: a bias to the short-termism in decision-making for the financial institutions, the banks, a narrow focus on the profits and shareholders, and a failure to address the externalities. The short-termism, the time horizons in which financial institutions make decisions are too short to consider the long-term environmental and social effects of their investment or activity. The short-termism is intensified by the pressure to deliver positive results, and predominantly at times on a quarterly basis for their shareholders. Short-termism can also discourage financial institutions from investing in those sectors that offer long-term value rather than gaining the short-term basis. Encourage them to discount the long-term risk of their activities and often include environmental risk. Regulatory pressures to enhance liquidity can also dissuade them from the financial institution from offering products that are designed to build over a longer period of time. So the financial institutions, obviously being governed by the corporate governance codes and being pressurized to deliver the results, are having a very narrow focus on the profit and the shareholders. So if the financial institutions make decisions based on maximizing their shareholders' return, it generally happens to be their sole motive. There's high risk that such decisions may lead to not those favorable results for the environment, and in fact they may lead to damaging the environment and society as well. So it happens in three ways. Only financial risk reward is considered in their decision. So the environmental consideration are not taken part of their decision. So those who are affected by the environmental and social consequences are not likely to be the shareholders, and so are not included in the part of their decision-making process. The focus on the profit maximization combines with the short-termism, and the impact of environmental or social cost and future profit considered irrelevant to the decisions generally. Failure to address the externalities. Externalities being that when financial institutions assess the risk and rewards of a decision using the criteria rooted in maximizing the shareholder returns, other factors such as the environmental factors, environmental costs are not considered. So this leads to the investment sectors projects that generate pollution, habitat destruction, carbon emissions, or other environmental damage. Externalities are not only negative, I mean, if they are investing in, say, green transport, they may bring in the positive rhymes as well. So negative externalities may be addressed through enhanced measure quantification of climate-related other environmental and social impacts, and prevent from harmful taxes to fund environmental protection, and also from the public pressures to internalize the cost of these externalities. So the identification and measurement and disclosure of climate-related financial risk is now being has been a great focus for the global regulators also. So this is also called a tragedy of the horizon, because the horizon for the financial institution is smaller than what is being required in order to build a more climate-oriented environment. So this mismatch between the business, political, and regulatory cycles and the time scale needed to prevent climate change impacting on the financial stability. So this is called the tragedy of the horizon. The environmental and social factors are looking for long-term investments, while the profit orientation is looking for the short-term profit gain. So this is where the horizon comes into play. So this is what we call the tragedy of the horizon. So there are also different principles. A number of different voluntary codes are also there, but Union Principles for Responsible Banking were agreed in 2019. These provide a framework to align, for the banks, in fact, to align their strategies and activities with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and to finance for the green and sustainable finance activities. UN Principles for Responsible Banking, these were launched in 2019 and supported by 130 banks from the different countries, representing more than $47 trillion of the assets as their founding signatories. So these principles encourage financial institutions to incorporate green and sustainable finance principles into their strategies and activities, and link their business plans to societal and environmental goals as expressed by UN SDGs and the Paris Agreement. A growing number of large mainstream financial institutions are now embedding these principles into their all or some of their activities. So there are a number of thematic areas within which these principles have been designed. The number one is the alignment. The first one, the banks shall align their business strategy to be consistent and contribute to the individuals and society's goals as expressed in the SDGs and in the Paris Agreement, Climate Change Agreement, and in also being incorporated in the relevant national and regional frameworks. The second thematic area is the impact and target setting. The banks shall continue to increase their positive impact, reduce the negative impacts on the environment, and managing the risks to the environment resulting from their activities, products, and services. So to this end, the bank will set and publish targets they can have the most significant impacts. Clients and the bank will work responsibly with their clients and customers to encourage sustainable practices and enable economic activities that are geared towards shared prosperity for current and future generations. The bank will also proactively and responsibly consult and engage their partners and with relevant stakeholders to achieve the societal goals. The banks will implement their commitment to these principles through effective governance and a culture of responsible banking, transparency, and accountability. The banks will periodically review their individual and collective implementation of these principles and transparent, accountable for their positive and negative impacts, and also for the contribution to the society goals. So these are the 6 thematic areas of the UN principles on responsible banking. So with these principles in mind, the banks need to develop a number of products and services. So what sort of the green saving and investment products and services that the financial sector can offer? The bank and financial sector services can offer sustainable savings and investment programs to achieve dual objective, the financial returns, and also to create a positive impact on the society and on the environment. The banks may offer a freedom of choice to their customer. That is how their investment will be used. So the customers take their responsibility and direct the bank that, okay, you invest our money towards certain sustainable goals, towards certain investments of yours. And I mean, matching the investments with the deposit as well. So this involves the products that contribute towards the financing green projects and business directly, or products that invest in the investment funds with the green and environmentally sustainable focus. So what are different sort of products and services that the bank can offer? The banks may provide investment around various sustainability themes. For example, renewable energy, sustainable food, green buildings, green transportation, health, sustainable water, waste heat recovery plants, the terrestrial aquatic biodiversity, sustainable maritime resources, innovation leading to sustainability, social inclusion. So all of these different investments can be made and geared towards the ultimate goal of the climate change. So one thing is the green buildings and infrastructure. So cutting emissions from the building and housing shall be considered to one of the most priority to help reduce the emission. So the banks can support the industry in the construction industry. They can provide the financing for the sustainable building, properties, and projects compliant with the green codes. Green mortgages, green residential mortgages can be offered to the retail banks customers and on an incentivized rate, slightly lower than the market rates for purchasing new energy efficient homes or invest in the green equipment or energy efficient appliances. Green energy solutions as well. So these are the different incentives that the banks can give to its customer for adopting towards a green living, in fact. Then green car loans are another example whereby banks can contribute and can provide green loans to their customers to enable them to purchase vehicles or cars that demonstrate greenhouse gas intensity or with high fuel efficiency ratings, preferentially below their market interest rates. The lower interest rates can be justified with the lower risk profile of the green car loans, will have lower operating cost for the electric or hybrid vehicles, and they may have more market and good opportunities in the wake of disincentivizing these fuel vehicles with the high rates and taxes in the days to come. Digital channels and green product offerings. Banks may utilize their digital channels and product offerings, such as the introduction of green debit credit cards. They may, enable their credit cards to make certain donations to, for example, to a non-profit organization or a charity that is being engaged in the environmental cost. Upon the purchases, balance transfer facility may also be available for these causes. And for such contributions, the cardholders may be incentivized by a reduction in their rates. So this is how the facilitation can be done by the financial sector for what they do. The fintech tools and techniques, especially the banking via smartphones, made it easier and cost-effective to provide financing and banking services to the previously unbanked population. So the fintech tools can also be used by the bank to track the customer spending behavior, and the banks can encourage their customer to reduce their personal carbon footprint. So the banks can track the spending pattern and can induce their customers' behavior for reduction of the carbon emissions. So these tools can also be very positively used by the banking and financial sector. Then comes another ambit, which is called the green microfinance. So the microfinance, as you know, has been promoting green and sustainable financing, green development in the developing countries. Household, farmers, and micro businesses are involved and at times involved in the activities that can damage the environment, such as agriculture, forestry, or where significant environmental benefits can be made from adopting more sustainable practices. For example, reducing consumption or switching to the renewable energy side. Microfinance banks can support green and sustainable practices, providing green loans and other financial services to the individuals, micro businesses linked to the achieving environmentally positive outcomes, as well as additional services such as educational training for entrepreneurs and for micro business owners. Green SME financing to small and micro businesses can also be provided with the clearly defined green purpose, sustainable investing in sustainable production processes, energy efficient and sustainable production equipment, providing environmental friendly products or services. Green agriculture financing. Banks may derive and tap the demand for green financing in the agriculture sector as well, where there's substantial potential for green and sustainable financings. Farmers and smallholders are the key stakeholders in climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts. Banks can provide green financing for complete value chain of the activities, be it the production loans, such as the input loans for seed, fertilizer, pesticides, and development loans for agriculture machinery, equipment, storage places, processing of the crops, and for quality value addition things like the polishing, packing, and transportation, and for various development of other agriculture products. So the green financing may serve for sustainable farm mechanization, efficient farming processes, equipment and machinery, energy efficiency, agriculture inputs to derive and sustain the agriculture resources and in the country. Corporate banking arms of the bank provide products and services to the corporate and institutional clients, and these clients have complex non-funded and fund-based financing needs. So the banks can provide banking products to large corporations and corporates to finance investment, project finance, infrastructure finance for the various industrial projects, and also the international trade financing. So green financing opportunities arise for the new products and services will be needed to decarbonize, that is renewable energy, battery storages, hydrogen, plant-based protein, carbon capture and storages, etc. Then there is another scope for the green investment banking as well. The investment banking arms of the bank help companies raise the debt and equity financed in capital markets. So where the company intends to borrow by issuing a bond, the banks can help the company with its investors. The bank also underwrite the issuances of the shares or bonds and also provide a guarantee to provide finance at a predetermined price whenever the shares of the bonds are issued. So banks shall endeavor to support, invest, and facilitate financing in those projects, for example, including wind, solar, hydro, and marine projects and projects on social and environmental sustainability. So the banks shall divest their investment and financing from fossil fuels and from those and divert to the renewable energy sources and all those that are devastating the environment, such as the coal products, natural gas, derived gas, crude oil, petroleum products, and the renewable waste sort of things. Non-renewable, sorry. There are a number of voluntary codes and principles which have been adopted by the financial services industry, and these are the green bond principles, green loan principles, and sustainability linked bond principle. So the green loan and bond principles have already been touched by one of my colleagues. So these are the type of bond instruments. The procedure will be exclusively applied to finance or refinance an existing new or existing eligible green projects which are aligned with the components of green bond and loan principles. Sustainability linked bonds are the loans instruments for which are linked to a sustainability performance indicator have been in a significant private debt product. For example, sustainability linked lending can be made available for borrowers with certain environmental, social, and governance risk profiles. So the banks can also issue a blue bonds for the marine life in order to restore the marine life and maritime resources as well. So climate-related risks are of three types, which are physical risk, transition risk, and the liability risk. So the transition to low carbon economy introduces many risks and opportunities for the business and banking enterprises to finance the carbon initiative, low carbon initiatives. Risk emerges from the regulatory actions such as carbon taxes and cap and trade systems, technological innovation that develop alternative customer and the customer habits towards and changing attitudes towards the new products and services, and customers changing their market preferences, consumers shifting purchasing towards non-carbon products, and liability concerns from the litigation connected with the physical impacts of the climate change. So these are all three different sort of the risks related to climate. The business analysis of therefore the climate related risk and the opportunities is very critical for the banks for the optimal allocation of their resources in the industry, sectors, and the markets. There have been a number of, in addition to the traditional sources such as the banks, financial institutions, insurers, and so many others, the microfinances, small and medium enterprises, investment banking. There are other multilateral institutions, development charities, and other impact investors who have also been contributing to the climate cause, and for which are generally, given their risk return profile, are not attractive to the commercial lenders. So there is also, in situations where the bank funding cannot be made available due to high risk factors, the United Nations-led Green Climate Fund, which is the leading fund, it's the largest climate fund. It's having the mandate to support the developing countries, reduce their greenhouse emissions, and enhance their ability to respond to the climate change. The GCF finances low emissions and climate resilient projects under its various climate mitigation and climate adaptation strategies. GCF employs part of its funds to help mobilize financial flows from private sector to compelling and profitable climate smart investment and opportunities. GCF helps de-risking by providing its support to reduce the high-risk climate change products so that the project becomes feasible for the banks to be financed. So the risky phase of the project is funded by the GCF through its de-risking instrument, concessional debt, guarantees, or equity instrument, while the non-riskier part is being contributed by the banks. So the GCF structures its financing support to leverage blended finance, crowded private investment for the climate projects. So the bank can use the combination of their own funds with the financing of the GCF in the various project phases, depending on their risk profile of the project. Banks will be more receptive of the risk, since the risk will already be in the riskier part will be covered by the GCF in their various green projects. And so they can introduce it on board more financial institutions in the climate financing projects to finance and they can finance it through the syndications as well. Last and but not the least, green governance is one of the most significant important area which the banks shall focus on in their corporate environmental strategy, operations, and in their sustainable initiatives. The role of the board, governance forums, and banks' green strategy and sustainable environmental policy, which is geared toward generating and providing sustainable solutions for the multifarious business and economy needs, including all to this clean energy, energy efficiency, and all those which are effective for managing the natural resources which are necessary for the human propensity. So the banks can revisit their governance models to align it with the green banking objectives and instituting effective changes at the top, such as strengthen the sustainability related capabilities on the board and set out clear sustainability related oversight responsibilities for the board. They shall document and report on climate related discussions by the board and by the committees as well. They can also assure sustainability data, including financed emissions, are measured, monitored, or acted upon. And they can also link climate strategy to the executive pay to align incentives and interest. So this is all about the different things that the financial sector, the banking and financial sector can institute as its own measure to check and to contribute towards a green world and to save the world from this very threat of the climate change. So thank you very much from my side. And if you do need any question, I'm here and always very welcome.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for sharing with us so much information. It was really, enhancing. Your information has broadened our thinking process. Thank you very much. Now I would like to go for our Q&A sessions. I have few questions actually at my hand. So first of all, I would like to and to give you a break, okay? Because there is a question for you also, but I want to give you a break. So now my question is for Dr. Medhat. So for you, there is a question: what are the main standard laws, procedures that have to be made by the OIC 57 governments in the stock market in order to promote the green finance? This is the first one, and there is another one. You mentioned that the green bonds are more costly than the conventional bonds. how OIC 57 markets can reduce such costs in order to make the green bonds more attractive to investors, based on what rules the discount rates and the interest rate of this bond should be formulated. So my two question is for Dr. Medhat.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the participants for the amazing interventions and presentations. As for the second question regarding how to lower the cost of issuance of green bonds, actually it is costly because it requires more credentials. It requires labeling, for example. So in conventional bonds, for instance, you need credit rating in order to have it subscribed and priced in a proper fashion. For green finance, for green bonds, for instance, you add to this step another steps, one of which, to simplify, is to get it labeled, or even if it is not clearly labeled or linked in a way, it needs to be accredited that the proceeds goes to the right place. It goes to the right projects. So it makes it costly because you make a lot of efforts, an additional effort to the conventional bond, and you need to be very specific in dealing with the proceeds. And this is what happened actually with the green sovereign bonds issued by the Egyptian government. The Minister of Finance said it was costly, it was not as we expected. He expected to be supported. The way you get it lowered is how to get a demand for such issuances, how to make the, for instance, the RE 100 renewable energy 100. It's an initiative actually, and similar initiatives who are dedicated from business side, dedicated for subscribing in such products that are socially responsible, that are environmentally responsible, and governance responsible, the ESG, as we said before. So the way you can make it be lowered is how to formalize and structure a good platform and a good reliable infrastructure for the issuance and the sustainable issuance of such bonds. This is one thing from the supply side. And from the demand side, the demand on bonds, not on the funds, the demand on bonds, you need to have socially responsible and climate responsible institutions and people who are interested in subscribing in these products. Because the more you have these responsible entities, the lower you get the cost of issuance and the higher you get the return on the issuance of these bonds. This is the only way that you can get. This is the second question. Can you please repeat the first question? I answered one question actually by writing, but I didn't get this. The first question that you mentioned, it is also directed to me. Dr. Taslima, you are muted. If you want to repeat the first question so I can answer.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can. I can now. Please repeat.
Well, actually, there is a little bit internet problem. That's why. Sorry. Thank you very much. And so, what about the stock market? So, have you given the answer? The first question?
No, the first question. I want you to repeat it. I answered the second one.
Okay. Sorry. I couldn't hear you because of the internet disruption.
Don't worry.
Okay. What are the main standard laws, procedures that have to be made by the OIC 57 governments in the stock markets in order to promote the green finance?
Okay, this is what I introduced a brief about the green bond principles, and all the stock markets should abide by these principles when having an issuance for green bond or any similar product, any green product. Not all green products, but also a lot of products are having common features with the green bonds, especially the debt products. All debt products like green sukuk, for example, should be abiding by these principles. But the stock market should have in place the proper platform for trading and regulations also that facilitate the trading, the issuance first and the trading, because we have primary market for the issuance and secondary market, which is the stock market, for the trading. So if you want to have liquid debt market, green debt market, you must have in place the proper infrastructure, legal and technology, and all the other in the primary market, of course, and in the secondary market also. You need to have the platform that facilitate the trading, secondary trading for such products. Also, you need to, if you are a developing country, you must bear in mind that sometimes it is very much required to start with the sovereign products, because the corporate products will be reluctant to be pioneering the race. They will just hold their horses and see how the government can make use of such it is still new for them, new products and new instruments. So the government must take the lead and start issuing. In Egypt, for example, we started issuing green sovereign sukuk and bonds, and the CIB is a very famous commercial bank in Egypt. Started also issuing some green sukuk, which were introduced widely in a lot of conventions, in a way that increased the appetite from the banking sector to do the same. Thank you. I hope I answered these questions.
Dr. Taslima, can you hear us? I think we are having a connection problem with the phone. Okay, I do have a copy of what we. Okay, thank you, Dr. Medhat. Now we have two questions for Mr. Antoine. Mr. Antoine, can you hear me?
Let's go. Okay.
Okay. The first one is, what are the needs of the OIC in order to achieve the zero carbon emission goal by 2060 or 2050?
You mean the
What are the needs for the OIC countries, in your opinion, in order to be able to achieve the zero carbon emission goal that was set during the COP and the Paris Agreement declaration?
Okay. I mean, first you need to know that achieving the zero carbon is not really a matter of individual country. It should be something that is realized within the signatory of the convention. Everyone has committed to do something in a way or another. Country are the party, and they have produced what they call NDCs, National Determined Contribution. When we put all of those NDCs together, all the country, we are short of really realizing what we say we're going to do is carbon neutral by 2050. So the OIC country, if you look at them, probably Indonesia gonna be the biggest emitter. Then you have Egypt, but you have the oil producer of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. How are they going to manage themselves to lower their emission? Going to be a factor within the OIC country commitment. But I don't think if the OIC is even a negotiating group at the UNFCCC, I never see them as a negotiating group. I know that you have the Arab group, you have the African group of negotiator, you have probably Indonesia that's going to be in another group in Asia, or probably with the BRICS. And this is where everything is really messed up, because when you come up to that level, you might have already siding with other country, and then the interests are not the same. It's very difficult. It's very contentious. OIC is a matter of faith, and then the faith transforming it in an economical, let's say, group. But when it comes to climate change, to responding to climate change, then you're going to see that most of the country don't have the same interests, so they're not going to act together for the same objective. Although we all know that this is what we have to do. So first we need to know if the OIC is a negotiating group. What is the position? How well they are prepared to look for what is good for them before they can translate it to what is good for the planet. And this is where we're having trouble when we're negotiating, because there is so many group with different interests. I know that Egypt, we are in the African group together, and then we go to the G77 plus China. The G77 was something that come out of the decolonization, because with the conference of Bandung, people didn't want to align with either the West or the East. But is it something that is really, I don't think it's still needed to be into a G77 plus China, when you know that China probably is going to take over the US in terms of who the country that is most emitting. So if you side with China in the negotiation, you don't have the same interest, and you have the obligation, because you are in the same group, to side with them and support them in whatever is not good for them. This is how it's working. So you have to be careful what you're wishing to. I don't know if I answered correctly to the question.
Thank you very much, sir, for your answer. And I have a question for Mr. Mahmoud Yunus Guri. To what extent does the OIC bank sector structure supports and motivate the investment in the green finance?
As far as the overall developing world is concerned, I think the developing world has not yet realized the impact of the climate change to the extent that it has to be. Generally, all of our leading countries, I mean, this green finance things emanated largely from the developed world, and they have been very cognizant at the moment in instituting a number of measures. towards the development of green finance, in developing different principles, in developing different models, and in instituting different financial solutions as well, and in mobilizing their investment and industry sectors as well. But when it comes to the developing world, including the OIC countries, the Islamic countries as well, we are lagging far behind in terms of instituting relevant regulatory and legal framework, market infrastructure, as well as creating an environment. I mean, Dr. Midhat has talked about the stock exchange and for introducing a number of ESG related indexes. So when we talk of these sort of initiatives, these are not being done by the great majority of the OIC countries. So the thing is that there is a great need to move towards these, firstly, to be cognizant of the need to take a climate action by all of these OIC countries. And they need to move fast with the world. They have to take more steps, because generally it represents those countries who are at more risk of the climate change. These countries have been experiencing more climate-related disasters, like that of floods, like that of earthquakes, and multiple others. So the need for instituting more, for taking more action and take more regulatory and institutive measures to control the effects of climate change, I think, is far felt in these OIC countries. And I think this platform, not only of the OIC, but also from this ICCIA chambers, I think we can develop a sort of a think tank or a group whereby these a collective information, a collective platform can be formed to provide certain guidance to these OIC countries and to enable them to take respective measures and to move in a lockstep with the developed world in instituting sufficient measures to protect their own economies, their own countries, and to contribute towards the wider global agenda of climate change. So this is my perspective on OIC. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I have another 2 questions in the chat box and QA. Let me read those, and these questions are actually open to all the panelists. First question, congrats to all the panelists. I have a question related to the link between green finance and green jobs. Can we expect that if we increase the number of green jobs, the financial green amount will also grow up? This is the first question. Okay. And another question is, it's just actually gone. Anyway, we can now, I'm requesting our panelists to give the answer of the question that if green jobs increase, it will affect the green fund?
Well, I answered in writing, and I believe Mr. Antoine also answered.
Yes.
But I can read my answer. Thank you so much. I believe that if we give due care to green finance projects, we shall create more jobs, and this will build the required capacity for further green projects to grow and flourish. So it happens on contrary. For the other question, but when it comes to if you want to get to it by Ms. Malika, I also answered in writing. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, sir. I have a personal question also. That is, I believe that, in all the countries, you have Islamic finance, right? Like Egypt, Pakistan, Senegal. I'm not sure that Senegal have the Islamic financing or not. Is it possible to merge the 2 financing, Islamic finance and green finance, to financing to get the greater benefits? If yes, then how? And if not, then why?
Right. I'll just briefly answer and then I'll leave it to my other colleagues. Well,
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
I
sir.
also happen to be a chartered Islamic finance professional, and I have been leading the Islamic financial sectors as well. So when it comes to the Islamic finance, as we have discussed a number of different, like Dr. Midhat has already discussed about the green bond principles. I also discussed about the various principles of responsible banking, the sustainability linked bonds. So when it comes to the Sharia based thing, I mean, for issuing a green sukuk, you need to incorporate all these green principles within your document, within your instrument, in addition to incorporating the Sharia based principles therein. So I would like to share that the Sharia-based principles of Sharia itself supports the overall green finance as well. The Sharia supports the responsible investment. The Sharia supports the social finance as well. So it makes a good fit with the Islamic finance. The Islamic finance makes a good fit, a good cause as well for the green finance as well. So they make natural partners together for the green finance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I would like to hear from other also.
I mean, I think that's my understanding too. If really one is clever enough to know how the Islamic finance is working, then I don't think it's going to be too much change when it's come to green finance, to adapt to green finance. Now, the problem is not if the Islamic finance is going to do it. The problem is the country, at the country level, how well the country is ready to manage to align to that need, because I know that we all have our country, like in Senegal, you have 95% Muslim, and the other is either Catholic or the faith, and we have the Islamic Bank of Development, who has their quarter in Senegal, but I never heard them in this kind of the green finance. I know I always meet some of their representative in the negotiation on the climate, but are they looking for how to get money or how to provide green finance? This is a question we have to ask them. Other than that, we have in Senegal a bank that is not Islamic bank. Is the Senegalese Agricultural Bank that is accredited to the GCF.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. If you want me to add something, I will not add a lot, but actually I believe that Islamic finance is all about responsible investment, and this is one very big common feature with green finance and green economy. But the main distinction between Islamic and conventional green products shall be the interest rates. So having an alternative, a good lucrative alternative to interests, to fixed income, by partnership, by revenue sharing, and by means of equity is a main difference. And this proved to be actually a very good means for getting over the contemporary crisis in the financial markets, which is caused basically by increasing of debts and incrementing debts, which became now 3 times the value of the global GDP. So by greening and turning to more Sharia compliant, however, we know that Sharia compliant differs from country to country, and this compliance depends on the Sharia board and other principles. But in common, they share together the idea and the ethics of being responsible towards the environment, towards the relationships to the society. In addition to this responsibility, you are responsible also not to create, to be indebted in a way that sabotage everything in the economy, which is currently being the major problem in the neoliberal economic viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now we are at the end of our session. Before closing the ceremony, I would like to say thanks and congrats to our speakers. Also, many thanks to Brother Ahmed Kadri, also the organizer and people behind the screen, the ICCIA team. Everyone, I would like to say many thanks and congrats. By saying this, I would like to end this session. Assalamu alaikum.
Bye. Walaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum too. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.